Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Thomas, and it's a real pleasure to welcome all of you here. This gathering has had its genesis in a desire to honor the work of Dan Hazen and his life. Thanks to Dan and his deep knowledge of collections, Harvard is the premier university library in the world, with almost 20 million volumes, including almost 1 million volumes in his field of Latin American studies. Scholars are attracted to Harvard on the strength of the collection, and it helps us retain and recruit people. Dan graduated from Cornell University in 1969, receiving a cum laude degree in history. And from Ithaca, he made his way to New Haven, where he received a PhD in Latin American history in 1974. 2 years later, he had added an MLS from Simmons to his bow. He traveled next to Nicaragua and served as head of technical services in library science at the Library of the Universidad Centroamerica until April 1977. Then he headed back to Cornell to take the position of Latin American bibliographer from 1977 to 1983. Next came his California years, where he was employed at the Stanford University Libraries and the Center for Latin American Studies. And in 1986, Dan became the librarian for Hispanic collections at Berkeley. But I would like to talk about the Harvard years and how he came here. In 1989, Harvard had advertised for a specialist in book selection for Latin America, Spain, and Portugal. The position description was the first document in Dan's very thick personnel file that I first consulted a little over a year ago. The next item, though, was mysterious to me. It was a postcard of a port in Ecuador. And I turned it over, dated 15 April 1989, in handwritten block letters. It read, "Dear Ms. Lee, please excuse this exceedingly informal response to the position announcement for Harvard Specialist in Book Selection for Latin America, Spain, and Portugal. The announcement has just reached me in a state of typewriterless penury. I am now approaching the 2/3 points of 6 months of Fulbright-sponsored lecturing and Berkeley-funded acquisitions work within Latin America. I expect to be back in Berkeley at work as of July 5th. If your position has not been filled by that time, and if you feel I might be a viable potential candidate, I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss it with you. I do not have a resume with me, but the Collection Development Secretary at Berkeley, Mrs. Jo Menifee, can provide one as needed. Many thanks, Dan C. Hazen." And that's what brought Dan to Harvard. Obviously, it was, all you need is a postcard if you've got the right stuff. He shaped not only our Latin American collections and our general collections, but critically, the principles on which research libraries built collections. As he struggled to transcend his illness in 2014, 2015, he worked on a paper which anticipated this symposium. He wrote the kinds of operational, he was thinking about Harvard and its role in collections. The kinds of operational next steps to consider for Harvard cover a broad range. The following link through independent discussion pieces or comments address some of these topics as they contribute to a broader action plan. At least 3 general frames are brought to bear. The Academy's evolving research agendas, the specific organizational and operational and policy resources that Harvard can muster around these needs, and the resources that universities together make available for research and learning. These general objectives resonate with more concrete issues. This list includes such matters as what are distinctive and unique collections and where do they fit? What does disruptive change mean in the context of collections and library services? How should we evaluate and participate in the several cooperative programs now taking shape for collection development, service, and storage? And the following comments boil these considerations down to the following rubrics: academic research, maximizing the library's contributions, bibliographers and collection development, the local view, collection development and the cooperative landscape, access, space, and discovery. I think holding this symposium is a fitting way to acknowledge Dan's legacy and to use the lens of his perspective to approach some of the critical decisions Harvard and other research libraries will face in the coming years. In planning for the conference, we thought that asking ourselves, what would Dan do, was one way to frame our discussions. The presentations that we will participate in today and tomorrow cover big themes of collective collections, collaboration, the role of unique and distinctive collections, emerging trends in academic research and their impact on collecting, and digital scholarship. I hope that our sessions will be truly participatory, and both in and out of our auditorium will be engaged in thinking about how we might develop an action plan or plans that will move us forward from ideas to implementation. And I'm especially grateful to our speakers, many of whom are in the front row today, those of whom are speaking this afternoon, but others dotted throughout, for agreeing with such alacrity to share their thoughts and their experience with us, and also to the many Harvard staff who have contributed to the preparations for these days. I've said it's been wonderful for me to be hosting this symposium, but to know that I could rely on colleagues to take care of every single detail. And I'd especially like to single out Francisca Frey here in the first row, and Susan Cassidy and Monica Key and our communications staff. But there are many unsung heroes. And then to you, our participants, it's a marvelously distinguished group of participants, people who are very thoughtful, who are knowledgeable, and the fact that you are coming together with us to think through these very important issues, it's our opportunity to make a difference in the academy through the increased value contributed by libraries. So now I would like to move forward to the main events this afternoon, and to welcome Lorcan Dempsey to set the stage for our discussions tomorrow. And then Lorcan will be followed by a panel focusing on Dan's contributions, after which we'll enjoy a reception in the beautiful surroundings here. Lorcan Dempsey, I'm so happy that I have the opportunity to hear Lorcan again. It's been actually a few years since we've been at the same event. He's responsible for the Membership and Research Division at OCLC and coordinates strategic planning there. And he's worked for library and educational organizations in Ireland, the UK, and the US. His work on national policy and library directions is widely recognized. I'd like to welcome Lorcan Dempsey this afternoon.